Television. I am Simia Kaparu, and this morning we would be looking at a particular topic that when you check the world, Nigeria is always being compared to the rest of the developed world. You know, you would often hear when you go to America, when you go to the UK and the likes, and most of the things they're comparing Nigeria with are the infrastructure in these countries, and of course what we have presently at home in Nigeria. We have a lot. Ministers, experts have talked about the deficit in the infrastructural gap in Nigeria and how government is trying to ensure that we have this gap, reduced, if not completely eradicated. But notwithstanding, this morning we'll be looking at engineering Nigeria's future, the infrastructural gap. We have engineers in the house to dissect, to give us how bad the situation is, or how good the situation is in Nigeria of today when it comes to the infrastructural gap, and how the government is also trying to get this gap, put it close to this gap. Very close to me here, I have the chairman of Nigeria Society of Engineers, Abeokuta branch, Engineer Mayo Waidu. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. Good morning.
And of course, he's not going to be here doing this alone. We have a woman in the house joining us today on the program. You'll be familiar with that, that woman engineer, Vice Chairman, Nigerian Institution of Water Engineers, Engineer Temitope Aboyeji. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much
Today.
It's my pleasure.
I won't be doing this alone. I have my colleague here with me in the studio.
Yes, good morning, seniors. I don't know whether you're thinking about Saturday already. Just looking at your clothes, I'm thinking red. Anyway, that's on the light selection. Yeah, talking about celebration of love. Even though for me, I celebrate love every day, but that day has been set aside. But we're not talking love this morning, like he mentioned. We're going to be talking about infrastructural development, and we're looking at the engineering aspect of it, which is the backbone. If not the major part of infrastructural development. So, maybe you should fire the first shot.
Okay, engineering is a very critical part of the Nigerian infrastructure, and developing it means that we need to have all the experts on the table. All hands must be on deck. So when let me start with you, Engineer Mayo Waidu. When you look at the gap as we have it presently in Nigeria, is it really about the political will to ensure that we have these gaps closed, or that we are short of effort to actually do this?
Thank you so much for that question. When we are talking about the infrastructure gap, Nigerian infrastructure gap, we are referring to the difference between what we have presently and what we need to have in order to meet up with our population, our economy, so that the society can be better for all. We are talking about roads, we are talking about power, we are talking about housing. Looking at all these things, do we have required capacity to meet up with the needs of the society? And so we are looking at how to close this gap from what we used to have in order to meet our needs. And all these are problems that are solvable. Engineering problems are solvable. They just require engineering solutions. We have competent hands. We have Nigerian engineers that can do this, that can bring the solutions to the table. All we just need is just to have convenient environment, necessary policy that will support Nigerian engineers to actualize this. I believe strongly that we can close the gap between Nigerian infrastructure and the rest of the world.
Okay, let me come to Engineer Temitope Aboyeji. You are the National Vice Chairman, Nigeria Institution of Water Engineers. So you operate at the national level. Even though I know as the chairman too, you also have the national links and all that. But the question I want to ask is that you have spoken briefly about closing the gap and the fact that we have capable and as regards Nigerian engineers. But the question I want to ask you is that For you to know how to tackle a problem, you also have the first need to understand how big that problem is. Looking at Nigeria and looking at our infrastructural gap, or the infrastructure gap, whichever way you want to put it, how deep or how huge, I think that's the word, how huge is this infrastructure gap?
Thank you very much. I would like to say that looking at the gap we're talking about, Nigeria actually has a long way to go in reality. Although there are available infrastructures, but the gap to be able to, take care of our future needs is actually a huge one. Because as it is today, even to meet the present population needs, we still have quite a long way to go. Is it the water supply? Is it the amenities in the cities, in the villages? So, but the fact still remains that once there is the will, which I believe we have the political will to ensure that these infrastructures are put in place, then it's something that we can, the gap can easily be closed up in no time. So we need the political will for that, and of course funding is also critical. Talking about the various sectors in the country, the education, our energy, our transportation system, our main amenities like water. I stand for water. Water is life, and especially when we are looking at water, most times water infrastructures are not things that you can really see with the physical eye. So at times our leaders don't really give it the level of importance that they ought to, because if you spend millions of naira, you have pipes being buried. They are not like bridges, they are not like houses that people can see and and applaud. But sincerely, for us to be able to take care of this, it is very important that the political will be strengthened and also funds be made available to make sure that our dilapidating infrastructures are renewed. Thank you.
Okay, I like the fact that you are a water engineer, and of course when you look at water, which is the engineers are central to planning, designing, constructing and maintaining water systems across the Federation, which of course brings me to this particular question. When you look at the structure of construction taking place in Ogun State, for instance, or across Nigeria, let's contextualize it using Ogun State here. At some point there were some locations that didn't have water, and this was because a lot of construction was taking place in that axis, and they just have to start sensitizing the people that is because of the construction and the like. So how serious do they actually take, that's the government now, in terms of providing other infrastructure beyond water? How serious do they take that department, that sector, to incorporate them into the planning of the state as a mega city? That's Abeokuta now.
Okay.
Yeah, the question is.
All right. So, of course, when we're talking about water facilities or water supply in our homes, not only in the cities now, but also in the villages and everything, the present government, I believe, they are doing their best to ensure that we have these water facilities get to more areas of coverage. But it's something that will take quite a time, because some of the pipes, the existing pipes in the past, are no longer efficient. Most of them are outdated and have to be replaced. So it's actually it's going to be an enormous investment. And at times we have this problem where roads are being constructed and even the available ones are being removed at the construction stage. And this goes to the fact that at times the relevant professionals are not carried along while when planning or when about to execute construction projects. Because if the environmental engineers are carried along, if the town planners and other professionals that have the idea of the existence of these pipes are involved while the design of the roads are being done, they would have worked in synergy to ensure that these pipes have to be, even if they have to be removed, there must be provision for their replacement. But that is where the problem comes. They exhume some of these pipes and they are not returned. And once there is a disconnection in the power piping system, then of course water will not get to the necessary destinations, and this has been a major problem also that we need to look into. So as one of the facilities or our infrastructure that is very germane, of course water, the need for water for us cannot be overemphasized. Thank you.
Another perspective that I want us to look at, and I'll be talking to our engineer to react to this, is that the last question I asked Engineer Abueji was how huge is the gap, and she spoke about the fact that we still have a long way to go. And I think I remember that part of where she landed was that we need the political will. If there's no political will, we cannot bridge this gap. But beyond that, so this aspect I want us to look at is that you are engineers, you are involved in putting together these infrastructures at different levels at different times. So beyond needing political wills, we've known, okay, this is the problem. She said we have a long way to go. Can you share with us from your experience on the field some of the causes of this long way that we have to go in terms of the gap that we have in our infrastructure? What are some of these causes?
All right, thank you so much for that question. You said it all that we need political will. Engineering must be guided by policy and not follow politics. It must be guided by policy and not policy. So as long as we have this policy in place, we will get it done. Now, our present position in Nigeria, and when you compare us with other rest of the world, I can say, okay, fine, we are missing this engineering innovation. Now, this engineering innovation improves quality of life. Now, when we have when city floods, we experience floods around maybe due to drainage design failure. When road collapse, maybe that we usually have repeatedly engineering failure. When hospital fail. So when we have this engineering innovation, it improves quality of life. Now, it's not that we don't have these capable hands to bring these solutions. We have some of Nigerian engineers that are doing this wonderfully outside Nigeria. But are they given an environment to carry this out? That's why I said what we need a political will, like you said, to get this thing done. The challenges that we have, we can say it's a mix of underinvestment, poor planning, poor maintenance culture, weak long-term planning, not looking at longer,
within the next 20 to 50 years.
Yes. So when we ignore maintenance, our system deteriorates faster. So we try to make use of these funds to repeat this thing again and again, instead of building things that will last for a longer period of time, that will meet the larger population. So we need policy to be in place that will favor engineering innovations so that we can close the gap between Nigeria and the rest of the world. I can give you another example about this infrastructure gap that we are talking about, comparing Nigeria with other parts of the country. Let's start with security. Let's look at health systems now. When you go to some hospitals outside Nigeria, the way they do things, everything is automated. Making use of AI to diagnose, to even get reports. you know, at times doctors will look at our x-rays and they begin to write reports, inaccuracy and things like that. They do this abroad using AI to generate reports, but here in Nigeria, we are not there yet. So it's not that we can't do this. I know Nigerian engineers that is involved in this outside, but the thing is, when you get to Nigeria, go to Federal Ministry of Health, is he going to have a workable environment to actualize it? So we need government to support engineering innovation so that we can bridge the gap between Nigeria and the rest of the world.
I know that there's one aspect I was actually also looking at for. I'm not an engineer, but we see from day-to-day activities is a lot of people also believe that corruption is part of why we have this infrastructure gap. Corruption from the client and from some clients and from some engineers. To what extent does this affect? Some contractors, engineers get jobs. You know, they have understanding with the person that is given the job, kickbacks and all that, and projects are done. At the end of the day, this long time that you're talking about, you will not get to see it long time. That's why you see a road being done today, maybe in the next 1-2 years, you start seeing potholes because they are, you know, underbidding and kickbacks from the engineers, you know. It will not even be the person that gave the job, or probably those that are supervising the job. So I want you to also address this issue of corruption, that both those that are given the job and even some of the engineers, that some engineers may even advise some people that we can do it this way, this is the way to do it. So how do you react to that?
All right, thank you. I agree with you that engineering transparency can reduce corruption. And I believe this corruption is one of the things that is moving us backward. Now, when you look at, I was talking about engineering innovation.
Yeah.
Let me try and divide this corruption into two aspects.
Okay.
One is about through kickbacks, giving the job to someone that you know, let's call it man to man, we. Another one is giving the job to someone and ensuring that the job is being done to real standards, you understand? So that's another part of corruption. So I can divide this into two. Let me start with the other part that says ensuring that the job is being done based on the design, based on the actual standard. So that one can be resolved if you try to imbibe what we call engineering innovation, like digital monitoring. I'll give an example. I will give you two examples. There is a software. Even federal government adopted this software, but they are not really using it. This software is in Federal Ministry of National Planning. You can get to know about all the projects approved, the level of construction, the level of money released, how it has been actualized, and monitor the progress. But even if you have this innovation, our problem in Nigeria is, are we actually making use of this? The use of that software is to reduce corruption, to ensure that the job is being done up to standard. Another one is there is this digital monitoring systems that can actually tell you the length of the road, the design and everything. So actually, if a contractor is telling that, okay, I constructed 2 kilometers, whereas maybe you constructed less than 2 kilometers, without disturbing yourself going to the site, you can get all these details to know the exact order. You did not complete this job based on our standards. So that can also reduce that part of corruption. The other one that you mentioned is...
So all you are saying largely is for a place where there is a political will, where the kickbacks are not just are not just dominant. This is a normal scenario you're building, right? Because according to the question he asked, the person executing the project has a lot of issues. You know, that's the scenario he tries to paint. You have a situation where you're expecting it's 100 billion naira project. Of course, 50 billion naira is expected to go somewhere, and of course, the remaining 50 billion naira is expected to be used to buy the equipment or the whatever needed, the components of the project. So, in all of this, the scenario you are trying to build is when no 50 billion is going
It's
anywhere.
going anywhere.
So the entire 100
Is being
billion
used for that.
is being used. So we can then talk about the political will. She also mentioned that with political will, whoever is in charge of whatever assignment is ready and willing to do their part.
Yeah.
And of course, put the engineers on their toes as well to get the job done. So if you don't have this scenario, if you don't have a context like that, what do you do?
Now, thank you.
Let me also ask you, because part of what I'm also looking at is that, a lot of times we blame the government. But if I'm an engineer, you're telling me that if you don't give me 50 billion, like she said, I won't give you this contract. I can say, okay, I don't do my own like that. Let me go for someone that will give me the needed support and the needed funds. But some of the engineers, because they can also gain, apart from the normal profit, you understand the corruption from both sides, those that are given the job and even the engineers that are executing. Because you are the two of you are representing them.
Maybe I should engage engineer. Okay, as a society, I think society was also created to attend to certain issues related to this. What would you do? Maybe we should drive home the point. What's the consequence for not having the gap closed in Nigeria as we have it now? In the next decade, if we are not closing the gap, maybe if we understand the consequences of all this, maybe the political will can come along the line. And as a society, what do you do? What have you been doing to engage government on all of these challenges mentioned?
Yeah, I think to start with, most of these infrastructures that we're talking about, roads and others, they are located in some vicinities. I think we should get to a point where those that are supposed to be beneficiaries of those infrastructures should speak out. They're constructing a road along your path, and you discover that what they are doing is not right. I think it's high time people also speak out, so that this will also
know it's not what they are doing is not right. Most of us might not be experts. Yeah, at times even as engineers, we notice these things on the road.
But you are professionals, that's what she's saying. We are laymen.
Some laymen also. I mean, you can tell. There's something about, and the way Nigerians are now, they also call on professionals. Please, they are doing this thing in our area. Please, what they are doing, is it right? Is that the way it should be done? So, but even as professionals, when we notice such, there is a level, we can't just stop them from working.
Okay.
Because that contract was awarded by an agency. And I believe that it would have been awarded to professionals also that knows what is expected and should have done what is right. So we actually find ourselves in these situations from time to time. But sincerely speaking, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. And we also need to know that when we are talking about closing up the infrastructural gap, it's not just a challenge to the professionals or to the engineers. It's for our nation in totality. It's a national priority. We shouldn't close our eyes to it. Those in the procurement sector should ensure that the job gets to the right person. The person that the job has been awarded to should ensure that you have enough fund released to deliver a tangible project. Contractors should be ready to protect their integrity. I think we should get to a point where most of these projects have signposts. We can take it from there. When you have projects, let's start bringing the names of these of those concerned to book.
Naming and shaming and bringing people to justice.
Bringing their names to book so that people will be scared of taking contracts that cannot be well executed, because you run millions of naira to construct facilities that should last 25 years, 50 years, but after 2 years, we are back to there again.
Okay.
So we are
I think I did that.
I want to react. And your reaction, let's try to pin it down to that she's also trying to talk about. You have the gap. It's so wide. It's huge. We've said it. It's because of the gap. On this program, we're talking about infrastructure in Ogun State 50 years after, just last week. And, one of our guests talked about the gap too. And of course, he said the pressure on political leaders to deliver, to cover, almost the entire local government, Ogun State, for instance, is huge. So he, a professor, actually said, Professor Akonjai actually said, if you can do 2 quality roads that will last for 30 years, it's better than doing 20 that will not last. But then, the expectation too from the larger populace is that you have to be able to fix everything. So how do we manage that balance along the line? And your society coming in as well to tell us whether you've been trying to also approach the government to give us better representation when it comes to fixing of roads and of course constructing most of this deficit in our infrastructure.
All right. Thank you so much for that question. When we look at this infrastructure gap that we're talking about and the roles of Nigerian Society of Engineers, we've been doing quite a lot, engaging government. I can give you instances, not only on roads, but also on considering our environment. We look at ourselves as not only builders of bridges and roads, but also custodians of our environment. We've engaged more than 3-4 ministries in this Ogun State concerning this infrastructure gap that we're talking about. And even just last week, we wrote a letter to another ministry. I would not like to mention name because of challenges that we are having in our state, trying to provide solutions, try to also engage with this ministry. This ministry I'm talking about, we had a meeting with them December and also October on one of the issues that is very, very important in our environment. So these are part of the things we've been doing in terms of engaging government, providing solutions, coming up to the government. At times we do this even pro bono, and then we hand it over to government to take it over from there. Having said that, my colleague mentioned about, she talked about bringing, it's the time we start, speak
naming and shaming and bringing people to the book.
So as to ensure like a strict compliance to all these engineering standards, because people collect money and they use half of it for their project, because at the end of the day it's going to be at the, we are all going to suffer for it. So I think that is the way to go, because government needs to ensure that all these things have been put all these things to end. We can't continue like this if we really want good quality roads that will last for a longer period of time.
Okay, talking about doing all of this, some people also believe that sometimes it may not be about corruption. It may not be about somebody trying to do a poor job, but maybe by the time it's being executed, the project is being executed, maybe the person has not really think so much about sustainability, because you can give me a good furniture, expensive, exact amount that is being sold, but for me I look at it, this is not sustainable. It's fine, I love it, it's expensive, I love it, but in the next couple of years, how sustainable is it going to be? So, and that's why some people also believe that sustainable design and engineering is part of what can help to to bridge this gap. So in terms of sustainability, how do you ensure, because times are changing, the population of Nigeria years ago is not the same population. So the pressure on the road, the pressure on the hospitals, the pressure on the water infrastructure are increasing daily. So in terms of sustainability, how much more, as a society and as an institution, how much emphasis do you usually lay on it for your members, that when you're coming up with your designs, when you're getting a job that you want to do, ensure that it's of quality and it's sustainable in terms of design and engineering? Maybe any one of you can go.
Okay, when it comes to design, part of the professional ethics is that you design for the future.
Okay.
You don't see a design by a professional that will just be for now. And when we're talking about projecting to the future, we are not talking about 10 years. You start with, say, 25 years and upward. So if you are constructing a bridge today, don't think that we will just consider the vehicles flying that route today. You have to project.
Like 25 years.
Yes, at least 25 years, 50 years for some structures. You can imagine, constructing a dam. You understand? That maybe the water or the reservoir is going to retain now may be minimal, but you still need to project that by the time we have more water for it to hold, when you go back, let's look at our structures. Many of them are standing for decades. Assuming it was just for the dam, then there would have been catastrophe.
But why do you have some narrow roads that even those of us that are laymen that I talk about will be like, this road, it could have been wider. Why do you have some of those roads? Major roads? Not major roads, but when you look at it, there are still spaces that you think as a layman it can be bigger.
There are some things that you put into consideration when you are designing. Now, like you said, that you asked about what we do, how we encourage our members to put sustainability into consideration.
They are different.
Even part of what we were taught in school is you need to put all these things into consideration during your designing, even right from scratch. So you are looking at it from layman's perspective, but the way engineers will look at it differs from that. There are some things you put into consideration. Now, have you considered some...
sorry to cut in, but we've seen some roads that were constructed that were essentially expanded. We've seen roads like that. So meaning that when they were constructing it, it could have been bigger. So why wasn't it bigger at the initial stage?
Is it resources?
Do you get my point?
At times, the fact that an engineer comes up with a design doesn't mean that design will be implemented.
Okay.
You can come up with a bill that this is what we need in this environment, but everything has to be put vis-a-vis the available funds. Yeah. At times, the executing agency are restrained by the fund. So at times we see some road construction without drainages. On a good day, there shouldn't be an asphalt without the drainage already in place.
So when you look at where we're coming from, I recall a particular road in my local government. The moment the people saw that someone is going to lay asphalt on it or probably walk on it without drainages, people were jumping up and down because that road was actually a terrible road at some point.
So the drainage didn't matter.
The questions that people ought to be asking at those critical times were ignored because, of course, when we don't have anything before, somebody is coming to say, let's do this, and then you're asking that it must be done properly. People often forget that reality, that the appropriateness of the project is actually more important than just putting something on the ground for the people. So, talking about your call for the people to be involved and for government to also, put the necessary resources. You also address the fact that the ministries executing different projects might not actually have the needed resources to do what is right by the engineers. So how then can we navigate this gap, talking about the future? Because most of the roads we've seen in contemporary times, you see, cannot last 10 years. Most of them cannot last 10 years.
Number one, I would like, before I answer that question, let me go back to what as per the roads that are supposed to be expanded. Let me give you an example. It's also, apart from available resources, I can also tell you that it boils down to the political will of the leadership that we have. I will just paint a scenario. Since we're on live TV, there's a particular leader that said that he ought to have, expand this particular route to maybe 8 lanes or so, but doesn't have political will because of people in that environment. They are going to cry. They are going to do a lot of things. Another leader, came on board and did that. So now, if the ownership of the building or the leader is telling that this is how
I want the job to be done,
don't have to than just to. You will just prefer solution, tell them the merits and demerits, make it last between so and so. But you can't go beyond what. So apart from available resources, also political will. Thank you. Now, and that will also lead me to another area. We talk about grid collapse now, and people will say, what is the cause of how we are going building collapse? Okay, quackery, use of substandard material, blah blah blah. But I used to tell them that no, we have use of substandard material, we have quackery, but I still tell them that the cause of the building collapse is the owner of that building, right? Because you allow non-professional to handle your job. That's quackery. You allow them to use substandard material. So why will you open your eyes and allow all these things to be done? So I'm going to take you as being responsible for the person's calamity. For this role that we're talking about now, if the leader that is, I don't want to mention names now, is telling that, okay, fine, I can't go beyond this based on available resources, based on what my people are saying, I don't want to offend them. You don't have option. So now back to Simia's question about
bringing the people that ought to, that don't have
people that they are still a road and no drainage, and they are happy that at least our bread is better than none.
Years now that we don't have something this smooth, and of course the government, like my engineer Abuyeji also said, that government has no resources as such, and of course the one they want to commit to the project is what they think they will do. And of course the other side of the engineers here, that's your society, your members, your experts, also insisting on doing what is right, how to marry all the different points together to ensure that the future that we are projecting. I also talked about the fact that most of the roads constructed cannot really last 10 years. The major roads that we have in our localities, you just look at them, just look at how you start to see potholes in 2 years and 3 years, you're already seeing potholes, even a year, you're already seeing potholes. So where exactly are we building that future for Nigerian infrastructure?
To bridge that gap. Maybe let me quickly add this to it so that you take the two together. Another thing you spoke about building collapse, and at some point it was becoming a kind of a menace for us in Nigeria, building collapse here today, tomorrow. So you've explained to us that sometimes you blame the owner of the building. So the question is, quackery in engineering. You represent two different bodies. Nigeria Society of Engineers, you represent an institution, the same body, at the national level. Division of whichever way it is, you are representing a society and you are representing a profession. How do you deal with quacks in engineering as we try to bridge this gap?
All right.
The two questions.
Okay. Thank you. There is what we call.
You have to also remember the second question.
Okay, no problem. There's what we call engineering ethics. Now, it's about integrity, doing the right thing at the right time. We are not only in most of our designs, in most of what we do, we consider that we need to consider lives of people. Like maybe if you are constructing a road, if you have collapse, look at how many lives will be affected. Now, so if you're also constructing roads and you're not putting drainage into consideration, look at what are the likely causes and the effects. So these are part of the things we are taught in school. Now, we have a regulatory body called COREN, Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. And under this COREN, there is a department called ERM, Engineering Regulation Monitoring. Now, I'll give an instance. Part of this ERM is to go around, and if all these things, if we find out this thing is even going on, we sanction the engineers that is on that project, because it is not carried out based on engineering standard. At times they are being penalized, licenses are being withdrawn, and things like that. I'll give an example. In Ogun State, we have Ogun State and UBEC. They constructed building for primary schools. You will see all this yellow roof, UBEC, and part of what Kuren did is to they move around all these projects, try to check. They appointed one electrical, one mechanical, one civil to look at the project. Now you look at all the defects, then you write a report. Now I was part of the team that studied with that responsibility, and engineers that were caught were penalized. So as a society, part of what we do is to,
if you don't mind, can you share with us the kind of penalties that were given to them, if you don't mind?
Okay. Part of
their license withdrawn, what kind of penalty?
Now it depends on the gravity of the offense.
And maybe you just tell us for about 3 or 4.
Okay. I don't want to mention the name of
you. Don't need to mention
there's one school in the east,
that is Ogun East.
In Ogun East Senatorial District, and the roof roofing sheet that was used was not what supposed to be used. And so
what was paid for?
Yes. Yes. So now the report was submitted to Kuren, which was passed to UBEC, and the engineer was penalized by asking to pay a certain amount of fine.
Okay.
Now that, because that one is not going to cause loss of life. Now, as long as it's going to cause loss of life, I know it's going to be much more than that.
Did they change the roof eventually?
Well, I didn't follow up.
Okay.
After that, the period for my own engagement was just for like 3 months or so.
Okay.
To work, get it.
You are sure that the man was penalized?
Okay. Now, so part of what we do as society is to monitor.
You didn't. I mean, none of them was caught for a bigger offense than that.
Yes. For us in Ogun State, I don't know in other states.
Okay.
For us in Ogun State, and even the program I'm talking about was between projects. Let's say between, we have 2014 UBEC project, 2015. So it's between 2010 and 2014 thereabouts. So that's the project I'm talking about. So part of what we do as society is we ensure strict compliance, engineering standards, engineering regulatory monitoring scheme. We go around to ensure these things are being carried out based on standard, based on engineering reinforced standards. So if we find out that this thing is even out of line, we try to penalize the engineers in question. That's what we do as a society.
And I think
people jumping not when they saw a road without road.
I think the solution, if we really want to close off the gap, the solution is we doing the right thing. At times it's better for these roads. You can see some of the roads built during Awolowo's time. There are some estates here in Abeokuta you go to. The roads, the asphalt lanes are still there, as if. Whereas the new ones that are recently done, some of them are already wearing out. So there is still a need for us to maintain integrity in the execution of our projects. Then also, government should also be concerned about the quality of services that is being rendered, such that if we are saying we are constructing Abiola way to maybe Alabata Road now in this year, we should be rest assured that in the next 50 years it won't be something we are still going back to fix again. So until we get it, then I don't know, we are not closing up anything. That's the truth. Until we do the right thing, there is no shortcut about it. That is the truth. But it now lies on the decision taken at the very top. If our leaders will insist that this is, even if it will take us some years, if instead of doing 20 kilometers, if it is 5 kilometers we can fix and we know it will last, then let's fix it and let the remaining people wait a minute for some time, and also when it's fixed they know that yes, it is fixed. It's not that we should 2 years, 5 years, roads are fixed, another 5 years you have to return back to the road, and it's at the long run it amounts to wastage of public funds.
Okay, because I think we've dwelled so much on the road construction. Maybe we should talk a little bit about water and of course why
electricity, because this collapse has been a challenge.
Exactly, and I want to mention this because she already talked about water not just something that should be restricted to the cities, the villages.
Of course.
How are they faring? How are they getting water? We have different sorts of water generation for them, but of course you now discover that the borehole system is also something that experts have also talked about. In fact, in the cities where in an estate, for instance, you have 2 buildings with different boreholes being dug. And along the line, the environmental hazard that has on that environment in later future is also something that experts have also been warning Nigerians about, that the central system is supposed to be created for such an area. And yes, looking at the rural environment now, what exactly do you think should be adopted at that level as well?
I would still say that considering digging of boreholes in rural areas, I think that for now can still be adopted. But when we are talking about cities, we have more than enough already, and the government should be able to put in place, a central system that can supply water in our cities.
Okay.
But when we now go to villages, like I was in some villages last week, and you discover that most of our villages are not really populated. Most of the children are not staying back at home. Most of them are in the cities, and part of the reason is because of lack of these infrastructure. So by the time we have boreholes, being drilled for communities like that, and also not just about like one of the villages I visited last week, to be precise, we saw like 2 boreholes dug, and we said, you have boreholes, I hope they are working, and they said that is like the wire is having issues, and they are still waiting for the same government that came to drill the borehole that has delivered the project to come and get this.
I guess I think we have to wrap up. The electricity that you mentioned, I was about sharing my pain. The last time I saw electricity in my house was Friday, and today is Monday. I don't know, but then we have to wrap up soon.
Okay, because of our time, Engineer Mayo Waijo, maybe give us 30 seconds of what you think in the next decade of Nigeria. You will maybe a projection as to what Nigeria would look like infrastructurally
in the next 10 years. Well, I hope that of course it's going to get better for us in Nigeria. So right there we are serious, and to close the gap between what we have now and what will be in the next 10 years. We are capable ones, and I want to urge the government to provide enabling environment for professionals to thrive and to solve most of these problems. Like you mentioned, bridge collapse and all that. I thought we are still going to go into that as I'm an electrical engineer.
Oh wow! So we know the problems about bridge collapse regularly, but it's high time we try to diversify into decentralization of our grids. Now state governments can now given power to states to generate the electricity. Which has been done. So now let state governments take it off from there, and then let's also look at other ways of generating electricity, like let's go to solar, renewable, all these renewable energy sources, so that we will not rely solely on national grid, that is with all this road infrastructure
that we have. So I just hope our government will, give enabling environment for professionals and also engage qualified professionals so as to bridge the gap between Nigeria and the rest of the world.
All right, we've been engaging two gentle men and a woman here, engineers. Engineer Mayowa Idowu, the chairman, Nigeria Society of Engineers, Abeokuta branch, and of course Engineer Temitope Aboyeji, the vice chairman, Nigerian Institution of Water Engineers. Thank you so much for being a part of our program and sharing insights into today's topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, it's new done.
Yeah.
Sanusi Latif, we have to go.
We have to go.
The edition is over.
Yeah, definitely. Infrastructure is something that's one of the things that can drive any country, that can make any country to thrive. And we hope and pray that our dear nation will thrive, because we don't have any other country. Enjoy the rest of the day. Another set of anchors will be here at midweek to do the midweek edition. Until then, from us, it's bye for now.